Hi everyone, welcome to Tuesday's English lesson. I'm going to do a bit of handwriting today and then we're going to carry on reading some of the BFG. Okay, I'm going to go straight into our handwriting. Today we're going to look at the letter W. Okay, I'm going to show you two different ways of doing the letter W. I don't really mind which way you do, all right? So the first way is the curly way. The second way is the straight way. I don't mind which one you do, okay? Here's the first one.
Start on the line, go up, down and round, up again, down and round, up again, and hook.
Okay, let me have a go. So starting on the line, we're going to go up, down and round, up, down and round, and a hook. That's just what I call a joining line. Up, down and round, up, down and round, and a joining line. Okay, I don't actually do mine like that. I do mine pointy. Almost exactly the same. But I would do mine pointy. Okay, so it's almost exactly the same. It doesn't matter, we're still going up, down, up, and a joining line. Okay, I don't mind which one you do. Have a go at doing one line of W for me, please. Okay, and today we're going to put that into some words that we'll probably use quite a lot, okay? We're going to have a go at doing the word we today, like we are playing in the snow. Now, this is a very tricky join. That's why I wanted to do a W today, because the join here is one of the first joins that we'll do that doesn't go on the line. It's not, we don't go down to the line and then do our E. We do our W. And then we kind of have to go down a little bit into our E. Now it can be quite difficult to keep your E the right size, because if you don't go down a little bit from your W, you'll end up doing something like this, and you'll end up with a bigger E than your W, and we want our small letters to be the same size. So when you're doing yours, try really hard after you've finished your W at the top. We're not going down to the line, we're just going down a little bit so that we can do our E. Okay, and this is going to be really important at the end when we do a tick for our best one and a cross for our one that's not very good, or even our worst one. Really look carefully at which ones where your W and your E are the right size, okay? Because that's a little bit new, and these letters will take a little bit more practice than our first ones, okay? So pause the video, have a go, and when you're ready, we'll start our English. Okay. Today we're going to learn to use similes. Should put myself down there. So just pause the video for me and write your date and title. When you're ready, you can press play. Okay, we're going to do just a little bit of a warm up. We don't have to write this, but question mark, exclamation mark, or full stop. What needs to go at the end of these sentences? Do you like cake? Look out. Dad is mowing the lawn. Which one of those is a question? Yes, do you like cake? That's a question. You're asking something, so that will need a question mark. Okay. Look out. Is that a question? No. Exclamation mark. Look out! Yeah, it is, isn't it? Look out! Dad is mowing the lawn. Is that a question? Dad is mowing the lawn? No. Exclamation mark. Dad is mowing the lawn! No. Quite a boring sentence that, I'm afraid, That's just going to be a full stop. So that'll change the way we read it as well, won't it? Do you like cake? Look out! Dad is mowing the lawn. So what we put at the end of our sentences can change the way we say it, can't it? Okay, I'm just going to swap these round, actually. So a simile is basically when you say that something is like something else, you say that something is similar to something else, okay? Sometimes you might have heard these phrases, the boy was as fierce as a lion. We're not saying that the boy is a lion, that we're saying he's fierce like a lion. Or the girl jumped like a kangaroo. We're not saying that the girl is a kangaroo, we're just saying that she's jumps like one, all right? So let's just have a little practice. I walk to school as slow as a... What's slow? Snail. I walk to school as slow as a snail. I know that some of you are a bit sluggish in the morning, so this bit is the simile, as slow as a snail. You don't have to have a snail. You could have as slow as a... What else is slow? Sloth. That'd be a good one. All right. Or what about this one? Katie ran as fast as... What's fast? A racing car. As fast as a racing car. And that bit is the simile. All right. Or you could have as fast... Oh, sorry. That bit is the simile. As fast as a racing car. As fast as a cheetah. Could have as fast as lightning. Yeah? You can also use the word like instead of as. So you could say that Katie ran like lightning. Or you could say Katie ran like a cheetah. Or like a racing car. Yeah? So we use as and like to use similes, and we use them to make our writing more interesting, okay? We're going to read the next part of the BFG. While I'm reading the next part of the BFG, I want you to listen really carefully and see if you can spot any similes, okay? You can actually look again because I'm going to use the website again. Okay, so this is the cave. The giant ran on and on, but now a curious change took place in his way of running. He seemed to suddenly go into a higher gear. Faster and faster he went, and as soon as he was travelling at such speed that the landscape became blurred. The wind stung Sophie's cheeks. It made her eyes water. It whipped her head back and whistled in her ears. She could no longer feel the giant's feet touching the ground. She had a weird sensation that they were flying. It was impossible to tell whether they were over land or sea. This giant had some sort of magic in his legs. The wind rushing against Sophie's face became so strong that she had to duck down again into the blanket to prevent her head from being blown away. Was it really possible that they were crossing oceans? It certainly felt that way to Sophie. She crouched in the blanket and listened to the howling of the wind. It went on for what seemed like hours. Then, all at once, the wind stopped its howling. The pace began to slow down. Sophie could feel the giant's feet pounding over the earth again. She poked her head up out of the blanket to have a look. They were in a country of thick forests and rushing rivers. The giant had definitely slowed down and was now running more normally, although normal was a silly word to use to describe a galloping giant. He leaped over a dozen rivers. He went rattling through a great forest, then down into a valley and up over a range of hills as bare as concrete. And soon he was galloping over desolate wasteland that was not quite of this earth. The ground was flat and pale yellow. Great lumps of blue rock were scattered around, and dead trees stood everywhere like skeletons. The moon had long since disappeared, and now that dawn was breaking, Sophie, still peering out from the blanket, saw suddenly ahead of her a great craggy mountain. The mountain was dark blue, and all around it the sky was gushing and glistening with light. Bits of pale gold were flying among delicately frosty white flakes of cloud, and over to one side the rim of the morning sun was coming up as red as blood. Right beneath the mountain, the giant stopped. He was puffing mightily. His great chest was heaving in and out. He paused to catch his breath. Directly in front of them, lying against the side of the mountain, Sophie could see a massive round stone. It was as big as a house. The giant reached out and rolled the stone to one side as easily as if it had been a football. And now, where the stone had been, there appeared a vast black hole. The hole was so large that the giant didn't even need to duck his head as he went in. He strode into the black hole, still carrying Sophie in one hand, the trumpet and the suitcase in the other. As soon as he was inside, he stopped and turned and rolled the great black stone back into place so that the entrance to his secret cave was completely hidden from the outside. Now that the entrance had been sealed up, there was not a glint of light inside the cave. All was black. Sophie felt herself being lowered to the ground. Then the giant let go completely. His footsteps moved away. Sophie sat there, dark, shivering with fear. He's getting ready to eat me, she told herself. He will probably eat me raw, just as I am. Or perhaps he will boil me first. Or he will have me fried. He will drop me like a rasher of bacon into some gigantic frying pan sizzling with fat. A blaze of light suddenly lit up the whole place. Sophie blinked and stared. She saw an enormous cavern with a high, rocky roof. The walls on either side were lined with shelves, and on the shelves there stood row upon row of glass jars. There were jars everywhere. They were piled up in the corners. They filled every nook and cranny of the cave. In the middle of the floor, there was a table 12 feet high and a chair to match. The giant took off his black coat and hung it against the wall. Sophie saw that under the cloak he was wearing a sort of collarless shirt and dirty old leather waistcoat that didn't seem to have any buttons. His trousers were faded green and were far too short in the legs. On his bare feet, he was wearing a pair of ridiculous sandals that for some reason had holes cut along each side, with a large hole at the end where his toes stuck out. Sophie, crouching on the floor of the cave in her nightie, gazed back at him through thick steel-rimmed glasses. She was trembling like a leaf in the wind, and a finger of ice was running up and down the length of her spine. "Ha!" shouted the giant, walking forward and rubbing his hands together. "What has us got here?" His booming voice rolled around the walls of the cave like a burst of thunder. And we're going to stop there. I heard quite a few similes then. We had one, the last phrase of that chapter here, like a burst of thunder. So it's saying that his voice is so loud that it's like thunder. And then a little bit earlier on, we had Sophie was trembling like a leaf in the wind. So she's trembling. That tells us that she's feeling nervous, and the author Roald Dahl is saying that it's like a leaf in the wind. So imagine a leaf blowing in the wind, it's trembling. Yeah, we had a few more further up. Where are we? Let's have a look. There's one about the sun. There we go. The rim of the morning sun, so the sun just as it's coming up in the morning, was as red as blood. And then there's loads of similes in this chapter. Dead trees stood everywhere like skeletons. So it's saying that the dead trees were like skeletons. There's obviously no leaves on them. There might not even be any branches. Imagine a body without its muscles and flesh and stuff like that. A skeleton is just bones. So the trees are just the tree trunks and maybe some branches. I think there's another one as well. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it or not. There it is. He leaped over a dozen rivers. He went rattling through a great forest, then down into a valley and up over a range of hills as bare as concrete. So these hills that he was running over had nothing on them, no grass, no plants, no trees. They were as bare as concrete. So I've got quite a few similes in the BFG today, where something is like something else. This is what I'd like you to do. I'm going to do kind of 2 mini activities, so you might have to pause the video a couple of times. Make that a bit bigger. So the first thing I'd like you to do is, well, actually, no, I'm going to show you some of mine, because today we're going to describe the BFG, all right? So I've got a couple of pictures of him. So this giant, these are mine, these aren't Roald Dahl's, so I thought we could say he's got little black eyes that looked like raisins. So his eyes are tiny little dots like raisins. I've got his legs were as thick as tree trunks. Really, really wide legs, like thick tree trunks. His ears were like huge flying saucers. I like that one. Because look how big his ears are. They're as big as her. She could probably sit in them. His feet were as big as a boat. The size of his feet. You could sail across an ocean in them. So there's a few of mine. The first thing I'd like you to do, and you might want to do this with your mums and dads or a bigger brother or sister if you've got one in the house that can help you. See if you can think, if you want to write them down, you can. See if you can think of a few sentences that are similes. Remember similes, most of them will be as, as, So before we had as slow as a snail, okay? Or like. All right, so I'm just going to leave that there. So you might want to say that something is light or fast or slow or tall or high or crying. I put up little pictures, a few pictures there to help you. So for example, we could say as tall as a, what's tall? Tree. We could say as tall as a tree. As tall as a, what's tall? Building. As tall as a building. The BFG was as tall as a building. Yeah? So pause the video and just have a go at thinking of some simile sentences. And when you're ready, unpause the video. Okay. And now what I'd like you to do is write 2 or 3, 2 simile sentences for each picture of the BFG. So you might want to steal a couple of mine. So you could look at, so if we're looking at this picture, we could look at the BFG's hair. What's his hair like? Or we could look at the BFG's huge nose. What's his nose like? Or the hills in the background. What are they like? Or his beady eyes. What are they like? Okay. Or we could look at his fingers. Look how big his fingers are. They're absolutely massive. His finger, one of his fingers is as big as Sophie. That's pretty big. Massive hand. So what could you say his fingers are like? Or his nose? Maybe his beady eyes? Or his absolutely massive ears? You could even write a sentence about his wrinkly skin. What's his skin like? Looks like a creased bed sheet. You could say that, couldn't you? He had skin like a creased bed sheet. What about his bald head? Could write one about his bald head. Or his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hairs. Could write about his hair. Or down here, we could do one about how dark it is. It was as dark as. You could say one about how big he is. I mean, look at the size of the buildings there. So how tall is he? What's his shadow like? How does he move? So hopefully I've given you enough ideas that you can write 2 sentences that have a simile in them for each picture. I hope that's okay. All right, so all of your sentences today will include a simile that has the word as or the word like. I don't think any of your sentences will have anything that doesn't have those words in. Okay, so pause the video now, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of your ideas. I've got some ideas, but I'm looking forward to hearing yours, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more English. See you later, year 2. Bye-bye.